welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar HR Toolkit. Thank you for joining today. Okay, so we'll just go through some introductions before we go into today's HR Toolkit webinar. So my name is Sam Connett. I'm a sales engineer here at Bitrix24 Gold Partners Interface. And we're based in the UK, in the US and Hong Kong. And what we do is we offer a full range of services to help you with Bitrix24. Starting off with pre-sales support, so we can discuss your requirements in detail and really gather those requirements and see if Bitrix24 would be a good fit for your business. If it is, we can then help to implement the system for you based on your requirements, so we can set up the cloud or the self-hosted edition of Bitrix24 for you. If you are looking at the self-hosted edition, we also offer our own hosting services for you, and we can provide you with training and ongoing dedicated support to really help you get the most out of Bitrix24. Okay then, so it's really important to understand what Bitrix24 is. If you're new today, you've come to the webinar to get more information. Bitrix24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 40 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. And the system is actually used by more than 10 million customers now worldwide, and it is available in two different editions. We have the Bitrix24 Cloud and the Bitrix24 self-hosted system. And prices start from $49 per month for a cloud-based edition starting at the basic package, or a self-hosted system starting with the 50-user business edition is available for $2,990. Okay, so today's webinar is a HR toolkit. So we'll be going through all of the tools within Bitrix24 that you can use to manage your HR requirements. And I think really to start off with, it's important to actually go through why Bitrix24 can be used to manage your HR requirements. So Bitrix24, it has some really useful tools for finding employees and information really quickly. So we'll have a look shortly at the employee's profile page where we can store and capture information. We can manage users' work time and also have a personal area for storing kind of critical information, such as within contracts and also maybe appraisal documents. All of that detail can be stored in your own personal drive space. We'll also see how we can use what we call self-service forms. So these can be for managing different types of processes, such as managing absence requests or expenses or purchase requests. And we'll see this is a really important area really, because you can fully customize processes within Bitrix24 using tools that we'll look at later called the Business Process Designer tool and the Robotic Process Automation tool. It allows you to implement your very own processes directly into Bitrix24. And we'll have a look at some of those custom processes later on today. Okay, so first of all, in the HR Toolkit webinar today, we're going to run through an overview of some of these HR tools in more detail. So starting off, we're going to have a look at the profile and company structure. So let's now go into our Bitrix24 system. So we can see inside here we're in our Bitrix24 system now. And the first area we're going to look at is the employee profile page. So every user within your Bitrix24 system has access to their own profile area. So on my page here, you can see on our Bitrix24 system here, we have avatars for every user here. But you could have real images and pictures for every user and employee that you have on the Bitrix system. So we've opened up the employee's profile page, so we can see here Max Smith is the employee, and we can see some contact details for Max in his side here. And what we can then also do is you can create your own fields, so you can capture and store really as much or as much relevant information inside here as you require. So for example here we've got a custom field where we can select the type of skills that we are associated to. So we can see here Max is associated to payroll, hiring and sales as their skills. And further down here we may have some additional information. I'm going to talk about appreciations in a bit more detail later on, but we can see appreciations inside here, and maybe we store some more information about ourselves, which is quite nice if you've got new employees joining the business. They can go onto people's profile, get a bit more detail and information about that person in the system. And at the top here we have shortcuts to different areas of Bitrix24. So for example, I might open up my task area. This will open up and show me all of the tasks that I'm currently working on in the Bitrix system, and I can start working through these, check out what comments have been left on any tasks I'm associated to. I may want to go into my drive area and see all the documents that I have within my own personal drive space. So the profile page is really useful to quickly shortcut into different areas of the Bitrix system. Now that was that employee's profile. At the top here you have a universal search area. So what we can do with this area is I can quickly search and find any employee in the system. So I've just searched here and it's brought through Max Smith, and I can click on there and it will open me up to that user's profile page inside the system. Okay, so that's one individual user. We also have what we call here the employees module. So we can go into here, and within here we can then see our company structure. So within the Bitrix24 system you can build out your corporate kind of structure into here. So all of your departments you can add into the system, and you can then add each user into their relevant departments, or it can also be multiple departments that you add them to. And within here we could also, if I wanted to, I could click on a user and it would open up their profile page. And we also have the employee directory. So I can go into here and see all of our employees. I could drill down into here if I wanted to search for an employee in the system. And this interface that you see here, as the administrator, I can customize what pieces of information are displayed here, also what the layout is. So inside here I can turn on and turn off different features. So that skills field that we talked about earlier on, maybe I add that into here and I can then see all of those skills that we had created in our profile page. They are then pulled here into the employee directory. So the employee profile page can also link directly with this page in the system, and we can filter into any user here. Now with any other user in Bitrix you can communicate with them. So for example, I may want to communicate with Mark, for example. I can then open up the instant chat tool here. So within here what we can do is I can instantly communicate with any colleagues in the Bitrix24 system. And that's through instant chat, but we can also do a voice calling, and we can do HD video call with up to 48 users in the system. So you can see here the different types of communication channels that you can run in the Bitrix24 system with your employees. And just one point on the chats, all of that history can be saved and you can filter through that history in the system. Okay, moving on now from the profile and company structure, we're going to look at the time management and reporting tools. So Bitrix has lots of tools here that allows you to record time in the system. So at the top here you can see we have the time on a clock interface. What you're able to do inside here is actually record your working day. So inside here I can record the amount of break time. So I'm currently logging the amount of break time that I've had in the system. Then I'm going to clock back in, and it's now recording my working time in the system prior to when I clock out at the end of the working day. Now this feature is available on all self-hosted editions of Bitrix24 and also the professional cloud license. So I'm recording the amount of time here that I'm working in the system. And then in our time and reporting module, as our HR team or administrators, I can come into here and let's say, for example, I'm going to filter down into a particular user, and I can then see the amount of time that they have logged in the system for each working day. So I can click into here and look at that specific day, so I can see where Max has clocked in, I can see the amount of break time they've had, and once we clock out, we will see the timestamp here for when the user has clocked out of the system. So as maybe the HR, I can maybe leave a comment. Okay, so I'm going to add that comment into here in their report. We can also set kind of rules in place. So if a user doesn't clock in by a certain time, maybe let's say 8:30 in the morning or 9 o'clock, then what you could do is you could then have a notification go to the HR manager, for example, who could then start to maybe investigate why that person has not clocked in yet, and so on, when they clock out as well. So we can put rules in place as well on this. Now that's clocking in for the working day. We also have the ability to clock in and record time on tasks. So within the Bitrix24 system, there is a task management module where we can create and manage all of our tasks in the system. Now we won't go into too much detail today on tasks because we do have a project management module HR webinar. But what we can do inside a task is I can start to record the time, and you can see that time now being logged against that task in the system, and we see all of that history saved in the task itself. So you can also record time on individual tasks that you're working on inside the system. So that's quite useful if you want to kind of focus down your recordings, so you can then actually see what you've worked on at a very granular level within the Bitrix24 platform, and that can then go into your daily summary. So you can then create a report to show exactly what you've worked on for that working day. Okay, so that's a look there at time management and some of the reporting features. The next area we're going to look at is personal drive space. So within the Bitrix24 system, you have a drive area. Now, for a self-hosted edition, it's simply the amount of space you have within the drive is dependent on the amount of storage space you have for it on the server. With the Bitrix24 cloud system, it's all determined based on which license you decide to use. So for example, the standard cloud, you would have 100 gigabyte of storage space. If you went for a professional cloud, you have 1 terabyte of storage space. So just take that into kind of concern when you're evaluating which edition of Bitrix24 could be most useful. If you're going to need a lot of storage space, then really you should be looking at least a professional cloud license. And within the drive area, I have my own personal drive space. So inside here, I can have all of the folders and files that I want to store inside here. Nobody else has access to this area. But it could be, for example, like I've got here a performance review. What I may do is I might want to share this with certain users within my Bitrix24 system. So, for example, it could be I share this with my manager, and maybe my HR manager, for example. So inside here, on any folders or any documents that you store, you can then set access rights. So let's say I want to share this with John White here, and I can then decide what level of access John has on that document. So I can give John White their full access to that performance review. So you can set access rights on all of those documents you store in your drive space. Now within here you also have a filtering tool, and what we can do is integrate with your local machine or external applications such as Google Docs, MS Office Online and Office 365. And then slightly different, we also have a company drive. So this is really like your company repository. So this is where we can store all of the folders and files kind of company-wide. And then what we can do is, again, we can set access rights. So certain departments may have access to certain folders, such as the marketing department could access the marketing folders here, as an example. So that's how we can use drive space to easily store information within the system. Okay, that's a look at the drive area. You also have your own calendar within Bitrix. So within here you can store all of your events and any kind of tasks in the system here. You can filter through on different displays here, so I can see all of my events, and you can integrate with external calendars as well. Okay, a really important area is employee engagement. So really one kind of key tool Bitrix is as a system is an intranet system. So it's an able tool to collaborate with other people, which we've seen through the instant chats, the voice calling and video calling tools. But what we can then also do is we can run different types of posts. So in your feed section, this is kind of your own newsfeed board. So any comments, any communications that are then associated to you, they will show in your feed section. And we can set notifications inside Bitrix. So I can go into here and configure my notifications. So I can decide which types of activities, so in here maybe some chats, or maybe if I'm mentioned in a post, then I can set what type of notifications I want to receive on the type of activity it is. And you can receive notifications in 3 different ways. So you can receive notifications directly in the Bitrix24 system, you can receive an email, and you can also receive a push notification to the Bitrix24 mobile app. So that's a really useful feature I find. If you receive it on the mobile app, most people always have their mobile on them, and you can then start to interact with that new notification. But inside here, what I can do is maybe I want to send a message to people. Okay, so I'm going to give that a title, and then I can add my message into here. Okay, so I'm going to say the office is open. And within here, if you wanted to attach any documents or maybe quote something or even record a video, then you have the ability to add that information into here. And then I can choose who I want to send this to. So I can choose my audience. So it could be individual users, it could be project groups, it could be departments. I'm going to send this to all employees as this is a business critical message. And that will then go to all of the users in the system. And on any post that you enter into here, users can like, they can leave comments. Okay, so I can add that message into here. So it allows for full collaboration on any type of post. Now within here you can also create events, so maybe company-wide events you want to add people to. You can create polls, so this is quite useful if you've got a question and maybe multiple answers and people can select their favourite answer. So it could be maybe where's the Christmas party going to be this year, and you can then select where you want it to be, for example. So that's quite a fun and interactive way of messaging people. You can also do announcements. So announcements are really for critical messages, so they can be pinned to the top of the section here, and you can have a little widget which shows the announcement, and you can decide how long that announcement stays there for. And once with an announcement, you can also make it so the user has to mark it as read, so we can see that they have actually read the message. And another type of post is an appreciation. So maybe with here what you can do is you can send certain employees a specific type of maybe a badge, for example. So inside here I'm going to give Mark a badge, so I can come into here and let them choose a badge in here, and then I can actually add the message into here. Okay, and I'm going to send this out so everyone in the business sees this, so everyone can recognize Mark has done a good job here. So I'm going to send that out in the system. Okay, so we can see that. And I mentioned earlier when we were in the profile pages how those badges actually get fed into your profile page. So inside the profile here we have the appreciation section. So I can see all of the badges that I have been accrued, and I can see the messages of why I received that particular badge in the system with the timestamp. So that's really nice if you want to just give appreciation to people, show them that they're doing a good job in the system. Now, one of the features we have is the company pulse. So you can see there's lots of different areas here in Bitrix where there are HR features. The company pulse just really gives you an overview and a glance of what is being used within your system organisation in regards to Bitrix. So I can see actually maybe the drive area is not being used that heavily. So actually what we could do is actually send a message out to everyone, just outlining some of the key features of the drive space, and then maybe let's send this out to everybody in the system, and then they hopefully will start using the drive in more heavier use in the future. So there we can see that message is going to get sent out to everyone to start using the drive space. Okay, so that's a look at some of those tools. Please add any questions that you have into the question box within YouTube and we can run through those for you. Okay, so a question here, how can I disable the time tracker? I assume when you say time tracker, you're talking about the clock in and clock out tool. So if we go back into time and reports, and if we go into the work schedule section, and let's go into edit the schedule, what we have the option to do here is allow clock in and clock out. You can disable on the browser and the mobile app. Okay, so that's where we can manage the clock in and clock out tool. Okay, if there are any other questions, please add them into the question box before the end of today's webinar. Okay, so that was an overview there of some of the key HR tools in the system. Now we're going to look at some live examples of how we can use self-service forms and workflows to manage our processes within Bitrix24. So Bitrix24 has many different ways that you can actually implement and run your business processes directly inside the system. And the first way we're going to look at this is using what we call the Business Process Designer tool. So within here, what we can do is, if I go into our workflow section, I can actually select the type of business process that I want to run. So you can decide what processes show here, or you can also build your very own custom processes. So inside here, I'm going to use our leave approval. So this opens up a form now that I can complete to request some leave, and this can all then be managed directly in the system. You don't need to have any paper forms that could get lost. This can all be automated through Bitrix24. So this form here, I need to select the start and the end date and the absence type. So let's select from the 21st to the 22nd, and the absence type is annual leave, early Christmas break. Now this form that we've filled in, you can completely customize this. So we've got certain fields here that are mandatory. You may want more fields in here. That's absolutely fine. The form is completely customizable. So I'm going to submit this, and that's now going to go to my manager to either approve or to reject in the system. So we can see now it's currently waiting for approval by our manager. And if we go into the time area, we have an absence chart. So once a request has been approved and authorized, it will then show in the absence chart here. So we can see all of the approved holiday leave across the entire organization. Now, one feature that we've developed here at Interface, which is available for the self-hosted edition, we've actually taken this to the next level. So what we have here in our absence management tool, this is a plugin that we can add to an on-premise edition of Bitrix24. And it allows you to have a leave entitlement for each user in the system. So we can see here, we can see the entitlement for every user. So for example, Max Smith has 21 days. And when a holiday is approved, we will then deduct that amount of time from their entitlement. So we can see how many days they have booked up, and critically we can then also see their remaining leave entitlement in the system. And with any entitlement that gets left at the end of the year, we can then pass that over to the next holiday year in the system if you require. So that's a custom feature that we've developed for the self-hosted edition of Bitrix24. If this is something of interest, I will add our contact details at the end of today's webinar and we can go through this in more detail with you. But if we just have a look at the absence leave request in some more detail, I just want to show you the Business Process Designer tool so we can see how this works. Okay, so we're just opening up now the Business Process Designer tool. So this shows you the Process Designer tool, okay? So on the right hand side we have lots of different action blocks that you can use to create your processes. Now we can train you on how to use this tool and we can also implement workflows for you if required. Now what we have here is the request is added, so this is where we added our information. And when we saw how it automatically got sent to our supervisor. Now at this we have a decision to make. So either the request is approved in the system or it is rejected. Now if it's approved, it then gets added into the absence chart, but if it's rejected, it goes down this right hand side of the flow and the requester is notified that the leave has been denied in the system. So there's different ways you can build out your processes. It uses drag and drop technology, so you can really build out any type of process you like in the system. But what Bitrix24 have now done is they have added a new tool called the Robotic Process Automation tool. Because what they got was feedback from customers saying this could be slightly kind of daunting and kind of difficult to actually implement workflows. Now, we would say you just really need training and support from a partner like ourselves and we can show you how to use this tool. But what Bitrix did is they implemented a new tool called Robotic Process Automation. And this uses a lot of the features and tools of the CRM system. So if you're familiar with the Bitrix CRM, you'll see this looks very similar to leads and deals. Because what you do in Robotic Process Automation is you create your own stages that you progress for a workflow. So for example here we have a business trip process. So first of all we create the expense for the trip. It then goes to our approver by the supervisor. Once they have been approved, we then submit the expense after the trip. And then the final step is it gets approved by accounts once we have all of that information. So inside here you simply create the stages that your workflow needs to have. And at each stage of the workflow you can then set up automation rules. So for example, as soon as it goes to the approval by supervisor stage, we notify the supervisor of the person who submitted the request that they have a new business trip expense to either approve or to reject. And there's lots of different types of automations that you can set up. So inside here you can really customize this to be managing to your specific workflow requirements. And because it uses stages and automations very similar to the CRM, Bitrix24 found that some clients found this easier to use. And what you do is you simply build out the custom fields into a form to start the actual process. So inside here, just like we saw with the leave approval, we have a form and we're going to submit the details that we need to have for the expense. Okay, so I'm going to select the location of the trip. I'm going to select when that's going to be. For example, we're going to select actually the client we're going to be seeing as well. So we've added that into the system. I'm going to move this to my approval by supervisor stage. And so if we go into our managers Bitrix24 system, we can see in here all of the different assignments that they have been asked to go through. And we can see now we've got one in progress. So I can come into here and I can see that information from the initial submission. So we've got Hong Kong, the location, we can see the details about the trip. And again, you can add more fields into here, etc. Maybe some files to attach receipts, etc. All of that information you could add into the field on that form. So it's a completely customizable process that you have inside here. And from here I can now either approve or reject the business trip expense. So I'm going to approve this in the system. And you'll see now that's been approved, I've been notified that my trip has been approved in the system, and it's automatically moved to the submit expense after trip stage. So you can see the automations working there. And if I click on that particular Hong Kong trip, first of all I can see the full history. So at each stage I can see where the approval happened, when it took place, and I can see now I've also got a task in the system. So I now need to actually add the list of expenses. So I need to document what those expenses were in the system. Okay, so we're going to say $50 for food. And actually once we've done that, maybe another field could be to attach a file with the expense. So now that's automatically, we've added that information. It's now gone to the final step, which is approval by accounts. Okay, so we can go back into here, and the final step is to final approve expense. So I'm going to approve that the $50 has been added into the expense, and that's now automatically been approved inside the system. So you can see we've gone back and forth and it's all been automated. We asked them to add the actual itinerary of what the expense was. So we had $50 for food. It's then gone back for a final approval, and once that was done, it's automatically then updated this trip to expense approved in the system. So using automations, you can really streamline your workflow processes. And maybe you actually want to filter on all of those that were successful, so you can drill down and see all of those expenses, and then again you can click in and see the full history. And I think this is really useful having this page, because maybe if you want to add any comments, you have a comment section, and this is really useful for auditing purposes because you simply have the entire history logged in the system. So this is a new tool, Robotic Process Automation, allows you to build your own processes using stages and automations, using a lot of the features from the CRM system. So you can see here we've got business trip, expenses, asset management, even employee onboarding. Those are a selection of the tools you could run through here. Okay, and the final type of process we're going to look at today. So we've seen how we can manage absence requests, seen how we can manage expenses. Another type of process you may want to streamline is the creation of projects. So maybe you need to bring a group of people together, have a selection of tasks, and maybe have that automated so there's no errors and you can quickly start working on a project. Maybe a new customer sale has been closed on an account. You need to bring a group of people together. So this is another type of process you could run inside the system. So let's say client AB123. I'm going to select a manager. So again, all we've got here is a form. This is simply a form of pieces of information we need to enter to start the initiation of the process. So it's completely customizable. So I'm going to select a manager and a designer. So these are the roles on the project. I'm going to add a deadline for this project. Okay, and then we've got here, maybe you add a document. We've got a type as well. So this is a condition. So based on what project type we select, that will then create specific types of tasks based on that selection. So project A, there are going to be a selection of tasks. Project B, there will be a different selection of tasks and different people who will be added into the project. So let's choose project A. Okay, so we've been notified now because I was selected as the manager of the project. I'm going to complete the estimated completion time for this project. I'm going to approve that, so I'm happy to be manager for the project. Okay, so we can see we've been notified about this, and if we go into our project management area, then what we can see is that client AB123 project has automatically been created, and that's also then created tasks inside the system. All of that can be automated in the system. There's no way of human error getting involved. So if we just go and have a look at that process, actually using the business process tool, you can see how this works in more detail. Okay, so I'm going to go into that process. So again, this is using the business process designer tool that we looked at earlier on. So what we have here is we added the information about the projects, and then we have all of that data about the projects inside here. We had a condition, so we had to select if we were going to create project type A or project type B. Now we can see here we created project type A, and we had that scoping task inside the system. But if we selected project type B, it would then have created 2 tasks, 1 design and 1 development. So it would have added those different types of tasks into the system. So you can see here, based on that condition, it's then going down a different channel based on what we have selected. So it just shows how flexible and customizable the business process designer tool can be. Okay, so we don't have any more questions right now. If you do have any questions before next week's webinar, please do email sales@interface.com. So in summary today, we've looked at the HR tools within Bitrix24. We saw how we can create our own profile and build our own company structure in the system. We have time management skills areas, so we can log the amount of time we spend our working day in the system and also on individual tasks. We also saw the drive space, so we can store documents and also share those with specific people. And a real big area is that employee engagement piece, so we can create different types of posts such as communications, maybe announcements, or send out appreciations to our staff. And we can set access rights for what information different people can access. So using the feed section, you can decide who those pieces of information are going to be sent out to, and in the drive area you can set access rights for who can access certain information. We looked at those self-service forms, so you can create your own processes using the business process designer tool, and also the robotic process automation tool, so you can decide which one would be most useful for you. Okay, thank you for joining today's Bitrix24 webinar. Next week's webinar will be total telephony. We're here at 11 AM Eastern Time each Tuesday, so hopefully you'll be able to join next week. You can register at interface.com/webinars. And as mentioned, if you have any questions before next week's webinar, please do contact us at sales@interface.com, and we'll be happy to set up a meeting to discuss your questions and requirements in more detail. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to seeing you on next week's Total Telephony webinar. Bye for now.